15 of the fantasy basketball season, and here's a few centers I would drop off your roster here down the stretch this week. The first guy is Serge Ibaka of the Los Angeles Clippers. So Serge Ibaka, he's been out a while now with that bad back injury, and he was supposed to be day-to-day, but we haven't seen him since March 13th is Ibaka, and we're already here April 6th today. So right now, Serge, he just can't get things going to get back on the court, and he's up there in age, and the numbers, they've definitely dipped down this season anyway with the Clippers. On the season, he's ranked 136 in fantasy basketball, 11 points a game, 6.7 rebounds, 1.7 assists, 1.2 blocks a game, a 3 a game, 82% from the foul line, and 50% from the field. So Ibaka, he just can't get it going to get back on the court. And last season, obviously, he scored 5 more points a game. He had more rebounds, and his field goal percentage was about the same. But Serge here, he went to the Clippers this offseason to have a good chance to win a championship, but he just can't get on the court. And honestly, this Clipper team, they've been not missing a beat without Ibaka. The last couple games, they've won 4 out of the last 6 without him. And Zubac, he's filled in pretty well, and he's reaching his potential. What the Clippers thought they were getting for him, trading for him a few seasons ago in LA. And Ibaka, he's been dropped in a number of fantasy leagues already. His percentage over the last few weeks has gone down 16%. He's still owned in 64% of fantasy leagues. But right now, even if he does come back, the numbers weren't eye-popping. They weren't huge for fantasy teams. And all 12-team leagues and 14-team leagues up to, I would drop him. The next center is Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson, he's been out the whole season here, and the reports had it in early November when this season was about to start. He's only going to miss maybe a month, but something's definitely going on here with Jaren Jackson Jr. And there's been no news and no update on him with this knee injury. And at the point it's getting, this Grizzly team, they're not that great of a team this season. They might just sit him out, or if somehow they make it to the play-in game, they couldn't put him here, Jackson, on the roster. But right now, he hasn't played all season. And he was a great ball player for this Grizzly team last year. 17.4 points a game, 4.6 rebounds, 1.4 assists, 1.66, 74% from the foul line, 2.5 threes, and 46% from the field. So Jackson, it was a good season for him last year. And this year, I thought he would take the next step. But right now, he's not going to get on the court, it looks like, at least for the fantasy basketball season. But like I said, if the Grizzlies get into the playoffs, then he'll be on the court, I think. But right now, it's just not looking good with 4 or 5 weeks left here of the fantasy season. And he's a player I think you could drop. I know he's still owned in 76% of fantasy leagues, but I don't think he's worth the time or the wait anymore, even with an injured list spot, because now you could have other players who go down, and you need those injured list spots, especially down the stretch here in the season. So Jackson, I would drop him, especially if you're trying to make one of those last seeds to get into your playoffs. And the third and final center, I would look to drop this week's DeAndre Jordan of the Brooklyn Nets. So DeAndre Jordan now, it's just been a numbers game. And the Nets, they gone away from him early in the season when they still had Jared Allen on the roster. But then obviously he was in the James Harden 4-team trade, and they had no one else really to rely on. So Jordan, he was playing a handful and a bunch of ball games as a starter once that trade went down. But now with the signings over the last few weeks of Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and the emergence of Nicholas Claxton, there's really no sense for the Nets here to play DeAndre Jordan. And he's got one of the worst defensive ratings in all the NBA. And the Nets, obviously, they need some good defense. That's the final piece they need if they want to win a title, in my opinion. On the season, Jordan, he's ranked 175, 7.5 points a game, 7.2 rebounds, 1.6 assists, 1.2 blocks, 49% from the foul line, and 76% from the field. So he was helping owners with decent categories, the 7 and the 7 on the points and the boards. He was getting the block a game, and the 76% from the field. I know it's limited field goals, only 4.4 a game on average. A lot of putback and dunks Jordan was doing, but it's solid numbers. But now 2 straight coach DMP, so he's phased out of the rotation, and they're going with Aldridge, Griffin, and Claxton. Like I said, so right here, he's an easy drop at the center position, and he's been dropped already this week in 5% of fantasy leagues. So that's a few centers I look to drop this week here in week 15 of the fantasy basketball season.